Hello everybody and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I will be talking about these things. Yes, I'm being very dramatic. This is a power supply, or a PSU, which is a power supply unit. Stuck to me. So today in this video I will be talking about these. These can go very wrong. Power supplies are actually very dangerous. They are actually probably one of the biggest reasons why your computer might not be working as of this moment if you are looking at this video. Say you've had a computer for a very long time and then suddenly it stopped working. So what do? You call a techie if you have very little experience with computers. So they check on it and they find out that your power supply is broken. So what do? They swap it out. Depending on how reliable your techie is, they might have not realized that you have a graphics card in your computer. They gave you a power supply that doesn't have the right connectors. For instance, say you have a new generation graphics card that is a 3rd gen graphics card and it requires an 8-pin connector. But you, having a new power supply, only get a 6-pin connector. So what happens? Oh god, maybe I should get an adapter because your experience level is, minor. You're thinking this way. I mean, they need to connect their graphics card so they can start going back to playing games again. So they buy an adapter. Don't buy an adapter. Now, the reason why you should never buy an adapter is because for that reason, you are connecting an 8-pin adapter. The part that goes into your graphics card is connected to a 6-pin connector. This 6-pin connector connects to that 8-pin. The biggest issue with this is that you are drawing more power into a cable that is not designed for that amount of power to go into an 8-pin. This is when you are throttling games. Now, you may not notice this. This isn't an immediate issue. Your cable doesn't just blow up immediately. But you're playing games and you're like, alright, well, I fixed the issue. I've got an adapter and it's working, it's fine, and there's no problems here. And then you start playing some high demanding games, you notice that your graphics card's not running to its peak performance. So what do? Playing harder and harder, you keep going, you grind, and then suddenly your game's not running anymore. What's happening? Your game's shut off. It's because your graphics card stops getting its power. So you're like, what's happening? You've practically ruined your power supply just a little bit. Your power supply, depending on if it has a gold standard rating, has a power protection setting. Now, your computer is running more power than the power supply can handle. This means that you're putting more voltage through a cable, causing a fuse to break in your power supply. Now, your power supply doesn't have a breaker like your house does where you can just flick it back on. Some of your power supplies have multiple fuses and then they keep fixing over time, but eventually they're going to strip away and eventually your power supply is not going to work anymore. And that is because you are over voltaging it. It needs to not have this much voltage going into it when you're playing those high demanding games like War Thunder at movie settings. Oh god, that's not really that bad. But say you're playing a game like Doom Eternal at full graphics, ultra violence, something like that, ultra nightmare, and suddenly your computer stops running. Some people will always go back to, oh, maybe it's not a big deal, I'll just keep playing, my power supply's working again, it probably just crashed, let's just keep playing. So maybe they might lower their graphics settings and all that. You shouldn't do that. You should get a new power supply, and sometimes people can't afford to, and they're quite cheap. You can get some $1,000 ones for maybe in the $100 range, but some people don't have that kind of money on them at the moment, so they stick to adapters. Don't. Find a way to save up, but you're going to ruin your computer. You're going to have to afford another one of these. You might even have to call up that techie and ask for a better power supply because they probably scammed you with this one. Well, if they scammed you, then they probably give you a replacement. Another thing that you should worry about when getting a new power supply, I'd suggest doing it yourself or have a very trustworthy techie. All the time you will need a power supply with a standard rating. This one actually doesn't have one. This is probably why it is broken, because it doesn't have a power protection rating. So that means that once it reaches a certain voltage, it will crash, switch off, and then switch back on. A lot of good standard power supplies have this, where it tears away, but it keeps refixing itself, and eventually the power strip will break off, and you will not be able to use that power supply again because the voltage will shut down. Or at least you will be able to play it, but once you've overthrown that voltage, it will break immediately. Like, you will break the power supply. In some cases, you can fry your motherboard if you don't have the proper power supply. If you have a crappy power supply, it might explode, catch fire, and cause all kinds of issues in your computer. Get a power supply that has a good standard rating. I suggest a gold standard rating. If you get a bronze one, that's completely fine. It doesn't really matter if you have a bronze, silver, gold, platinum, or titanium. Titanium's the best, copper's the worst, but it all basically just means the efficiency between changing from AC to DC in your wall. I have explained this in my previous videos, so if you want to learn about it, go check out videos on AC to DC if you need to learn more about that. On this one, it says it can handle 220 volts. Because I live in Australia, we have a higher voltage rating than other North American countries and South America, I believe. They both do not have very high power ratings. So yeah, I suggest you get a power supply that is actually built for your country. But this is a cheapo power supply that actually is broken. It's dead. And the reason it is because it doesn't have a standard rating, which means it probably doesn't have a voltage protection. Anyway, thank you guys. I hope you learned something about this video. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you are aware of when future videos come out on this channel. Thank you guys, and goodbye.